Before we get started on things for Tru Heel Heat 132, we want to send our deepest condolences to the original Patriot, Del Wilkes. He passed away this week at 59 years old. Wilkes was the famous original Patriot in the WWF. He had a long career working in multiple different countries as well as companies. We want to send our deepest condolences, our thoughts and prayers to his family. R.I.P. the Patriot. Hello. It is me, your Tru Heel Phenom, SP3. We are back with another weekly podcast, Tru Heel Heat 132. On this edition of Tru Heel Heat, we will be discussing the latest wrestling news, including a recap of an amazing Wednesday return for AEW Dynamite, as well as last week's Saturday Night Dynamite, including Eddie Kingston's controversial anti-WWE promo and the response to it. It was a response. Backstage shakeup in WWE, including one official quitting his job and joining AEW almost immediately. A fallout from the latest WWE releases, a sneak preview of the biggest interview that we've probably had in the history of the Tru Heel Heat YouTube channel, and our individual Mount Rushmore of the most disappointing NXT call-ups in history, and more. I am not this week joined by the lovely, the beautiful Miss Chrissy Love, or the resident Tru Heel alcoholic, Top Guy JJ, filling in the shoes, making the hot tag, the pitch hitter, the sixth man. He is an artist extraordinaire. He is the Tru Draw himself. You've seen him on many different Tru Heel Heats, including the most viewed Tru Heel Heat of last year. Hopefully he continues his streak with this one. Don't get worked. It is Josh Morera.
How's it going?
I always try to give you a different introduction every time you're on the show.
That's good. Yeah, that was really good. Yeah.
Try my best here. This edition of Tru Heel Heat is brought to you by our friends over at Powered 4 TV. Of course, you can get 50% off of your subscription for Powered 4 TV by using the promo code SP3. But we gotta always start off a Tru Heel Heat with our Tru Heel roll call. This is for everyone supporting us on social media, everyone supporting us on the Tru Heel Heat YouTube channel. Our top 3 conversation starters for the Tru Heels group page this week is coming in at number 3, James Wims. Coming in at number 2 is Mr. Powered 4 TV himself, John Scott. And coming in at number 1 is the Negro Buck, Nick Jackson. Nick Jackson has been on a roll, Josh, ever since he came out of retirement.
Very much. I mean, even when he was in retirement, he was on a roll.
He was. We just didn't say it. A couple of Tru Heels that we got to shout out: Eric Luna, Manny Rojas, Tiffany Marie, Ruben Lopez, and Charles Tota. A couple of YouTube subscriber highlights: Kwame Shafir on Tru Heel Heat 131. He commented, "The finish to Bobby and Super Drew match with Bobby winning via roll-up of Doom is absolutely garbage. The roll-up of Doom is easily not the most overused, not only the most overused finish in WWE, but the worst finishing move today." He's always getting spicy in the comment section, Josh. Kwame Shafir wasn't happy with Hell in a Cell. Were you?
The match itself was good. The finish, I mean, I didn't like the finish, but I thought it was a little weird that they had their match at WrestleMania, and you see the way that he won at WrestleMania, and then to lose like this, Drew to lose like this at Hell in a Cell, honestly, I thought it was pretty ass backwards. It just felt weird.
It was a little bit awkward, especially because this was supposed to be the last match. We'll get to that. Andrew plays to 323. Commented on Tru Heel's BTR with Weston Blake. We want to give a huge shout out to Weston Blake for that great interview I did with him. Shout outs to Alex McCarthy and Talksport and Lucha Libre Online for setting that up. Andrew Plays says, I really never had an interest in them since the tweet from Jackson Riker, but after this interview, I am a big fan of Weston Blake. Love from Germany. So a shout out from Germany. I love the long distance shout outs that we've been getting lately on Tru Heel Heat. But we're going to start things off, Josh, this week with our top news story, and it's a long one. It's one of those usual long ones when it comes to the top news story. A lot of details here, as there has been backstage shakeup and rumors in WWE. Fightful Select reports that producer Sanjay Dutt has parted ways with WWE. Last December, it was reported that Dutt returned to work for WWE after being furloughed during the pandemic. Sanjay Dutt was first hired as a producer by WWE in early 2019. Of course, you might have recognized the name Sanjay Dutt from his time in TNA and Impact Wrestling, former X Division champion. Multiple sources reportedly confirmed his exit. However, details on why he left are said to be few and far between. PW Insider also reported that Dutt was not released by WWE, but he actually gave his notice several weeks ago before leaving. Dutt was reportedly working full-time as an NXT producer and coach at the time of his departure as a part of Team Triple H with Shawn Michaels, the likes of Samoa Joe as well, the Road Dogg. Additionally, the report noted that changes are still expected behind the scenes, with potentially some big ones, quote unquote, in the upcoming days and weeks. Sanjay Dutt has reportedly already found his next gig. However, it was reported during Wednesday before Dynamite that he is going to be working as a producer on this week's AEW Dynamite. PW Insider reports that Dutt is was backstage at this week's Dynamite and was working as a producer. The site notes that it is believed that he has signed on full time with AEW. So one door closed and he went right through the other one very, very quickly. Dave Meltzer and Figure4Online.com initially reported also this week that WWE Senior Vice President of Talent Development Canyon Ceman was released from WWE, and rumors started circulating that Ceman was gone from the company. However, Meltzer later posted in his personal Twitter that Ceman okay, I gotta laugh whenever I say his name. Ceman was still with the company and said it was a crazy story. Following the initial report, WWE later confirmed that it was inaccurate and Ceman was still employed with WWE. Details are scant on what sparked the talk of Ceman's departure. However, there have been a number of major cuts behind the scenes at the corporate level within WWE in recent months, like we've talked about here on Tru Heel Heat, along with a great deal of roster cuts, which we've also touched on. Additionally, PW Insider is also reporting that Canyon Ceman is still with WWE, and sources from the company are stating that reports of his exit are 100% incorrect. Fightful's Sean Ross Sapp is reporting that there were rumors circulating within WWE and wrestling circles for the last couple of days that Ceman was let go. Sources reportedly did not respond in the negative until just this week. Earlier on Tuesday morning, former WWE trainer Dr. Tom Pritchard posted on Twitter, and I quote, "Sometimes it doesn't take much to make my day. My little bird texts me some interesting news this morning. I find it true more and more that no one escapes karma. Good luck in your future endeavors, asshole." Pritchard has been very outspoken over his past issues with Canyon Ceman. It's speculated that Pritchard was referring to Ceman with this tweet on Tuesday. However, those suspicions of Ceman being released appear to have been debunked for the moment. All this news follows the latest round of WWE releases, which included Breezango, Killian Dane, Tony Nese, and various 205 Live stars, with the story being that Nick Khan, the president of WWE, was behind these decisions, although WWE sources denied this claim to Fightful Select. So, Josh, what are your thoughts first? Let's address Sanjay Dutt leaving WWE and immediately joining AEW.
It was pretty random. Like when I heard about it, I was like, wait a minute, wasn't he doing well with the company? I don't know. Yeah, I was a little surprised just because of how fast it came, and then all of a sudden he goes from one job to another. Usually that happens, but I guess maybe there was something going on that we don't know about that he just decided to jump ship.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people speculated this week that it had to do with Sanjay Dutt wanting to work with a more friendlier, more comfortable behind the scenes working conditions in comparison to WWE. He was a part of the releases that they did behind the scenes last year during the pandemic. Do you think that there's some credence to that thought?
It could be, you know. I know there was a lot of people who are in the same position who weren't really happy about things. I think maybe these waves of releases this year probably did it for him.
Yeah, he was probably close to a lot of the different talent, especially on the NXT cuts that went down, and he saw the writing on the wall with like Samoa Joe coming in, as we'll get to, with Samoa Joe talking about how has more of a role on like Team Triple H with NXT. But onto the Canyon Ceman part of this top news story, do you think there's any fire where there is smoke in regards to Canyon Ceman? Do you think that his position with the company is firm, or do you think it's a little bit rocky with these rumors?
I would say rocky, just because usually when things come up like this, it doesn't come. It's not like, oh yeah, they just make something up, and I think there's kind of truth to it. Maybe maybe he was part of the plan to being released or whatever. But I do believe there is smoke.
Yeah, I mean, I always say where there's smoke, there's fire, and usually with WWE, it always seems like it is. And Canyon Ceman is not a name that a lot of people hear of a lot. He's a part of their talent development and their scouting.
Yeah,
You've probably seen him before on like Breaking Point when he's been talking to like Baron Corbin and Mojo Rawley. That's on the WWE Network. So
yeah. He was also at Battle Club Pro when they had WrestleMania week
yeah.
in New York. It was Regal, it was him, and a few other executives that were there scouting. So I'm familiar with him. So yeah, I do believe there's something going on with that.
Yeah, and it's all of that seems to point to President Nick Khan. Me, Chrissy Love, Top Guy JJ have talked about his decision making and a lot of the moves he's been making over the last couple of weeks. What has been your thoughts on the decision making of Nick Khan in his role as president when he only started in this position last August? It's crazy with the amount of moves that he's making. What have you been thinking about it?
I think honestly, I think he's just doing it to cater to Vince because the last what person on his position, there was issues there. So I think now he's just in a position where he's gonna do the moves that he knows Vince is gonna approve of. So I think that's what pretty much he's doing, because there's a lot of things that he says, but I think he kind of contradicts himself a lot. So like he's talked about like how he wants to bring pro wrestling back into WWE, but then I think his moves kind of contradict that, because it's like if you want pro wrestling back, most of the people that you're releasing, they're pro wrestlers. So that's what I mean. Like they're not like you know what I mean. Like you really you got it 205. A lot of those guys don't talk at all. They're workers. They're wrestlers, and same thing with NXT. And then when you do that, it kind of it's like you're saying that you're about one thing, but then you're doing another. So I think it's more so just catering to Vince.
Yeah, I mean, he seems like a very staunch negotiator and a guy that's kind of putting his as I've said before, he's putting his dick on the table when it comes to WWE and showing that he has some control, he has some power. Do you think that we're gonna come to a stage or a point where Nick Khan is going to be the guy that takes control and it's not going to be Triple H? Or do you still think that Triple H is going to be the guy that kind of takes on the Vince position when his time comes to move on?
It's actually starting to feel that way, to be honest. There's when it comes to that, I think the whole Samoa Joe firing kind of told the story to that, because it was something that Triple H didn't agree with, and then Triple H is the one that brought him back.
Yeah.
So it does come off that way, because Nick Khan is they're focusing on record revenues, they're focused on record profit, but yet you're not really making a profit when you're just cutting, you're just releasing people, and then there's a bunch of money to be saved. So I'm like, how is that record setting? That's all that every time they talk about that crap, it doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't really translate, and it just seems like they're trying to like, they're losing money on live events, and they're probably going to lose money again as they go back on the road in just a couple of weeks time. And it seems like they're doing all these releases to kind of mediate the cost that it's going to take and the loss of profits that's going to happen with the live events by releasing these guys with like bigger contracts. To kind of talk about the WWE releases part of this story, which one of these like latest batch of releases surprised you the most?
Uh, that's a good question, because it's like there's a few people that come to mind, but I don't know. That's pretty tough, just because like everything that has happened is just so random. It comes off more random. It comes off more random than anything. So it's like it's kind of hard to tell. Maybe like Black and one of the waves. Of course, Aster Black was a surprise. Braun Strowman was a surprise. You know, those two didn't. Being released kind of was. It was just awkward, just because Black just came back on TV, and then he gets released. Braun Strowman was just in the program, and he gets released, which he was pro WWE.
Yes, very.
But recently, I guess it's just more of the overall, like the latest one is just more of the overall, like this is direction. Like them getting the 205 Live roster, I thought was a little strange. But it turns out that they really don't. It turns out that Vince doesn't care about 205 Live, which kind of shows it. I mean, it shows to the product itself.
Yes.
Yes. I guess it's just more. I would say more of the Evolve people. You brought out Evolve, and then you get these talents, and then some of them are already gone. Not even a year in, they're already gone. So it's the whole thing is just weird.
Very, very, and it just seems like they like let go of some of the guys that they got last year from Evolve, and now they're using guys that they weren't using from Evolve, and now they're putting them on 205 Live because they cut some of the guys that they were using on 205 Live. This latest batch of releases is somewhere in the middle of understandable, because these are not guys that they had big plans for, but at the same time, it's very confusing. And it just seems like they're cutting on every single level, because we've had 2 main roster cuts. We had an NXT cut. This was more of like NXT and a majority of 205 Live. But what changes do you think need to happen behind the scenes in WWE, whether it's on the main roster or in NXT, Josh?
behind the scenes,
Yeah.
uh, behind the scenes, there's a lot that should be going on behind the scenes. I just think, I think all of them just need to be on the same page. Like if there's if there's discussions on talent being released, that needs to be, that's something that you guys need to come together with, because like I said, Triple H wasn't happy when Samoa Joe got released. He had no idea about it. He had no say in it. And then when he found out, he brought it back right away. He was on the, Samoa Joe apparently sent a text thanking everybody, and then Triple H was like, "Hold on, let me handle this," and then he brought him back. So I think when it comes to behind the scenes, I think that's just what it comes down to. I think it's just, if there's moves that you're gonna be doing, you gotta, everybody. I'm not saying everyone has to be on board, but at least there should be some kind of discussion of what's the plan, because it seems like that's what they're doing. It seems like that this guy, Nick Khan, is just doing shit out of nowhere, without really any real plan to it.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. Like Samoa Joe being the best example, it's really the saying, like, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. It seems a lot with WWE, whether it's Triple H and Vince, whether it's Nick Khan and Triple H, or even sometimes Vince and Nick Khan. It doesn't seem like it correlates, because Nick Khan, there was the rumor earlier this year that he was in discussions with New Japan Pro Wrestling to do some type of partnership there, and that's not something that seems like something Vince McMahon would want to do or do on his own. And Nick Khan can make the deal all fine and dandy, but it's going to be up to Vince McMahon to kind of make the creative on that part of the spectrum, which I don't know any wrestling fan that has faith in Vince to kind of make that live up to the expectation.
Yeah, not at all. I like when I heard about that, I was like, no, I thought it was total bullshit. I guess maybe their plan was about it. I mean, that's all they really did, because once you found out, like, oh yeah, it was more so based off Daniel Bryan.
Yeah.
They're not gonna. The way I see it was that they weren't gonna cater to one wrestler for another company. That's how I saw it. I'm like, there was no way they were gonna do that. Maybe like if it was John Cena or like Roman Reigns, I don't know, maybe, but I didn't see them doing that for Daniel Bryan.
No, that seems very unlikely and goes against pretty much everything that we know about WWE. So yeah, I think we're gonna be talking about this some more. Like they said, some big changes, some big plans and shakeup is on the forthcoming when it comes to WWE behind the scenes. So we'll keep you up to date right here on Tru Heel Heat. But since we are done with the top news story, before we get into what we missed, it's something special for you guys listening and watching Tru Heel Heat this week. Tru Heel Heat 132. We have a very, very, very special sneak preview of Tru Heel's BTR Between the Ropes, with probably the biggest interview that I've done for this YouTube channel yet, as I got to chat with the former WWE champion, former Impact Wrestling champion, controversial figure in the wrestling world, Alberto El Patron. Take a look at this sneak preview as I asked Alberto if he would be interested in returning to WWE or potentially joining up with All Elite Wrestling. Check it out right here.
I thank you for being so, open and honest about, everything that you have like going on. I do have one final question for you. You have a new lease on life. You have everything going on. You're a promoter. You're back in the wrestling world. You have this big match on July 31st against Andrade and Carlito. But have you been any talks with like WWE or AEW to make a more larger return to the mainstream audience?
I hope one day I get a second or third opportunity, whatever it is, a first opportunity in other places, because I would love to do that. I'm still a fan of pro wrestling. I love pro wrestling with all my life. I think I got younger in my first match this year. I got 10 years younger after having that match because this is my passion. This is what I love, and I want to just do what I've been doing. I just want to continue doing what I've been doing since I started in this business, performing, having fun, entertaining you, and hopefully going back home and getting a kiss from my kids.
So yes, that was a very sneak preview of Tru Heel's BTR Between the Ropes with Alberto El Patron. It gets very, very real on this interview. I did not just ask him that. I asked him about his legal troubles from 2020, as well as he discussed his relationship, the rise and the fall between him and former WWE superstar Paige. Trust me, this is a very open, honest interview. It's going to be up on the Tru Heel Heat YouTube channel next week, so check that out. Like, share, and subscribe. Click the bell, click the notifications so you get alerted when that video goes live. But Josh, we got to get into what we missed this week, and what we missed was AEW returning home to Wednesday nights for the final Daily's Place era of AEW Dynamite, and it had one of the best main events that I've seen in AEW Dynamite history. An outstanding matchup with MJF defeating Sammy Guevara thanks to a steel chair shot from Shawn Spears, following Wardlow throwing Chris Jericho off the perch right in front of the fans. This match was crazy. So many incredible spots. You had Sammy Guevara with a flip dive into the crowd, a la RVD and ECW. You had MJF with the top rope tombstone power driver. Sammy Guevara with the 630. Just a tremendous matchup. They did a great job building it up throughout the night, and it really played off and delivered on every level. But that is not the only thing we saw. We also saw Eddie Kingston and Penta El Zero Miedo upset the Young Bucks, the AEW World Tag Team Champions, to earn a shot at the titles next week in Miami at Road Rager. This was a shenanigans-full matchup, but a great opener, and the Young Bucks just take their level of clothing and the facial hair to another level to be the most obnoxious heels, and I love every second of it. The porn stashes, I might shave my beard and make a porn stash. If my wife is okay with that, I will do that. That's what I plan to do. We also got the first tease of Kenny Omega versus Hangman Page for the AEW World Championship at All Out, in what I thought was a very effective segment, with the Dark Order interrupting Omega after he said he had no more challengers, alluding to Hangman coming after the title. We then saw Hangman confronting Dark Order, upset, asking them why they would do something stupid, but the Dark Order are just the best friends anyone could ask for. A heartwarming scene where they told Hangman they don't think he's scared of Omega, they think he's scared of failing. And this is probably one of the most deep and layered stories in professional wrestling that I probably ever seen when it comes to Hangman Page's psyche as the millennial cowboy. We also had Taz announced that Brian Cage will defend the FTW Championship against the medically cleared Ricky Starks on Fyter Fest Night 1 on July 14th. We also had Miro with a new entrance theme beat Brian Pillman Jr. to retain the TNT Championship in a pretty good matchup. And we also got a beautiful tribute to Daily's Place, the era for the last 16 months with AEW being there during the pandemic. And then we had JR close out the night saying WWE Dynamite. So we had everything. We had all the ups and downs, the twists and the turns. What was your thought on the Wednesday return for AEW Dynamite, and what stood out the most to you?
It was actually a really great episode. I really enjoyed it. What stood out the most was the build-up to Omega and Page. I thought those were two great segments. You had Omega with the slow burn, then you had Hangman confronting Dark Order, saying, why did they do that? But then them explaining why they always have his back. and then the way like they walked out and they're just leaving Hangman to leave him with his thoughts. It made me really want to see the match now. Like it really like in a long time, like I haven't felt that way. Like oh shit, like I really want to see them go at it all out, and then see Paige finally get his moment. Hopefully.
Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. But yeah, I totally agree with you. This is probably one of the longest build-ups to a world title match that any promotion has done, because it was 2 years ago at All Out 2019. Hangman lost to Chris Jericho in the first ever AEW World Championship matchup. 1 year ago at All Out 2020, him and Kenny Omega lost the tag team titles, and Omega walked out on him, where he first teased his whole heel turn and his own persona that he's doing now. We also should note that Kenny Omega had the Triple H circa 2005 mustache going on. It seemed like it was a whole elite theme with the mustache. What was your thoughts on the elite porn stashes on this night?
Yo, it was weird as fuck. I was like, what the hell is going on? Freaking Nick Jackson freaking came out looking like the quarterback from the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I was like, what's going on?
Yes, I saw some people saying that he looked like Joe Exotic. Like I would never financially survive this. So yeah, it was an interesting choice. What did you think of the tag team champions losing a non-title match? This is something that we see very often in WWE, but not very often in AEW. So I thought it was very effective, and it seemed like the right moment to do this, because we've seen a couple of different title eliminators with the world champion Kenny Omega versus like Matt Sydal and Joey Janela in the past. We've seen the Young Bucks versus other tag teams in these title eliminators, but finally the champs lost the non-title match to set up next week's matchup. What did you think of the opener?
No, I thought it was great. There was like a lot going on, but I thought the right team won just because Eddie Kingston is the one that's been in the feud with them.
Yes.
With Moxley on his leave. So I mean, at some point he had to get a W some way somehow. So I thought this was I thought there was it was a perfect timing for that, at least to lead on to the title match.
And I thought there was a lot of funny stuff in this besides the porn stashes. Brandon Cutler missing Penta with the cold spray, but still spraying that jacket.
And he just stood there. He just like kept doing it.
He was like,
yo. To be honest, yeah, Cutler's been great because Cutler, he's in that role where he's still a babyface, but he's pretty much being blackmailed to doing all this stuff.
He's being blackmailed and trying to keep his contract by being the young boy for the Young Bucks. So yeah, I've been liking. Yeah, I've been liking all this like stuff within the elite. Like, I know a lot of people were down on the Young Bucks title reign when it initially happened and them as baby faces, but I feel like they've been on fire ever since they became heels and kind of embraced their very jerky asshole stuff. Even
yesterday, I think when they were on the stage, remember this guy Nick had I guess he had like a souvenir. He wants to give it to somebody. Teasing it, and then he gives it to Nakazawa, who's sitting in the crowd. What the fuck, yo?
They've been doing that. I think they did that like a couple of weeks ago.
That was great.
They've been very, very slick with that. Just the little things that they've been doing. It just adds a lot to the overall package of getting heat on the Young Bucks and the Elite. I've been loving it. But that is a good segue to talk about what happened on Saturday Night Dynamite just last week. We didn't get to talk about it on Tru Heel Heat as the episode dropped before the Saturday Night Dynamite, but the show did its highest rating of these preempted Dynamite episodes, 649,000 viewers, with the most viewers actually being for the main event. The main event did 793,000 as Kenny Omega defeated the Jungle Boy in an excellent main event to retain the AEW World Championship. Following the matchup, there was a beatdown from the Elite and HFO on Christian Cage and Jungle Boy. We also got a fantastic promo segment with Conan and Tully Blanchard face to face, which led to Santana and Ortiz getting beat down backstage, and FTR laying out Conan with a spike power driver. You also had Hangman Page defeating Powerhouse Hobbs in a very fun opener to the show. Matt Sydal interrupted Andrade El Idolo and then defeated Dante Martin in a good showcase for the young star, but Matt Sydal getting the win to set up him versus Andrade in Miami next week on Road Rager. You also had, after the camera stopped rolling, very interesting segment as Eddie Kingston and Penta El Zero Miedo made the save for Cage and Jungle Boy from HFO and the Elite, which led to Kingston cutting a rally promo for AEW that was viewed as anti-WWE. This led to a fiery response from not only the pro-WWE, anti-AEW fan base, but even former WWE superstar, WWE Hall of Famer Bubba Ray Dudley, aka Bully Ray, on Busted Open Radio, who told Eddie Kingston to shut the fuck up and stay in your lane, talking about he shouldn't be the one to make those type of comments since he's never worked for WWE. He said he's fine with Cody crushing the throne, he's fine with Jericho saying F you, but Eddie Kingston should be bigging up AEW and not putting down WWE. So let's talk about that promo first. Did you think the promo was really bad towards WWE? Because I was kind of confused, because I thought that people kind of overreacted to it and kind of proved they didn't live through the Attitude Era. But what was your thoughts on the promo, first of all, from Eddie Kingston?
I think everyone's freaking exaggerating on it. This is something that he's done before. Like, why is everyone surprised about this? Like, he's done it before. He did it during his feud with Moxley. Like, why is everybody upset? Like, you know, I get the whole, like, oh, you know, you shouldn't be bringing up this company again. I'm like, but at this point, to be honest, I'm like, who cares? Like, it's going to happen. You know, they did it back in the 90s. They did it with WCW, WWE, and they were doing it all the time. You know, WWE taking shots at WCW with their vignettes. You know, it's, I mean, there's like, what do people expect at this point? Like, what, you know, like, what's the point of getting like this upset about things when it's the same guy who's been doing it? That's where I'm lost about.
Yeah, this is what really got him over originally with those Moxley promos, was him bringing up Moxley selling out and going to the man, which was WWE. So what was your thoughts?
And then on top of that, he kept calling it the land of entertainers. Like, it's like him all the time.
He's been doing it from day one in AEW. I didn't get that. But what was your thoughts on Bully Ray's response, telling Kingston to stay in his lane, considering where Bully Ray came from in ECW, and the fact that he cut very similar promos even in his time in ECW as well as TNA?
In a way, I get where Bully Ray is coming from. You know, I get it. I totally get it. But, you know, as in, you know, he says that, oh, Eddie Kingston shouldn't be the guy to do that. Bully Ray shouldn't really be the guy to be talking about this when he's done it himself. Like, he did it before. He did it in ECW before he was hired with WWE. You know, like, he's done it before, and then he did it after he was gone from WWE. Like, he did it when he was in TNA. So that's why I'm like, okay, like, what, you know, I guess maybe this is his way of wanting to still be on good terms with the company. But I mean, at the end of the day, like, I get where he's coming from. Being a professional, I get it. But it's like, okay, bro, like, really, Bully? Like, we're gonna forget your stuff back in the day? We're gonna forget that?
Short-term memory by Bully Ray, it seems. He don't remember him telling, WCW and WWF to fuck you and all that other stuff that he did with the Dudleys. I mean, some of the stuff the Dudleys said in ECW, they would be canceled in today's world in 2021. But let's talk about more the bright side from Saturday Night's Dynamite. What was your thoughts on Omega versus Jungle Boy in the main event?
Oh, it was fantastic. Like, man, both guys killed it. Like, which I get. Everyone's, they're praising Jungle Boy, rightfully so. But it also proves how great Omega is, and this is why so far he's been ranked number one in a lot of pro wrestling, lists of people have their own power rankings things, certain companies, PWI, this is exactly why he's number one, which, a lot of people are they're going to get upset because they feel like maybe Roman should be first, but I mean, Kenny is clearly number one with his matches alone. But on top of that, the guy has freaking 4 belts. So, I mean, how are you going to take that away? But overall, man, like Jungle Boy, and it's crazy because this is not like, oh yeah, this is his first great match. This is already multiple. This is maybe what, his 12th, I would say, his 12th great performance. But this is definitely his best. But I really think the kid is the future of the company. He's really gone in on a roll. Same with him. Same with Sammy. All those guys. They're proving why these guys are the future.
Yeah, you had a star-making performance on Saturday Night's Dynamite by Jungle Boy, a star-making performance by Sammy Guevara. MJF is very young in his career, but he's already considered one of the top guys in AEW. To compare to those two main events, which I think are probably in year 2 of Dynamite, I would say in the top 10 or top 5 best matches that we've seen in year 2 of Dynamite. Yeah. Which one would you say you liked more? Jungle Boy versus Kenny Omega or MJF versus Sammy Guevara?
I would say a little bit more. I would go with Jungle Boy and Omega just because of, the circumstances behind it. Sammy and MJF is right behind it just because, Sammy, I already know what he could do. His performances, they're not surprising to me. I was more surprised with MJF just because he's more of his style was more, more basic. But him doing that trick tombstone from the top rope, I didn't expect that from him. That was surprising because he usually doesn't do top rope moves like that. He usually doesn't do that. But I think that was more surprise. That was he really surprised the shit out of me when it came to that. As in the finish, a lot of people weren't happy with the finish, of course. But I mean, I like the finish because I was like, damn, I was even upset myself, and I'm like, they did their job. If I'm upset, they did their job because that's what the whole point is. And even though I already had a feeling it was not going to be a clean finish, but I thought the finish was fantastic. It just brings more heat to stuff, but also it brings up Sammy even more for him to one day become a champion.
Yeah, I think the future is so bright in AEW, and those two main events really proved it. To be the devil's advocate, I'm gonna say MJF and Sammy was, I would say, slightly better because you had a year-long build, pretty much. Because from the moment that MJF entered the inner circle, the Dynamite following All Out last year, it started the build up between him and MJF, and they did a great job building it up throughout the night. The great promo segment, if you didn't see it, that they put up on AEW's YouTube with the two guys going going back and forth. It felt like they really hated each other, and MJF's promo earlier in the night sets up for next week him coming back with the stipulations similar to what he did with Cody Rhodes last year. He's giving stipulations to Chris Jericho so Chris Jericho can earn another match with MJF. So this Pinnacle Inner Circle story, one thing that I did note on Twitter was they've really reinvigorated my interest in the Pinnacle and the Inner Circle. I was down on the rivalry because I didn't feel, doing the blood and guts first, then into Stadium Stampede. I didn't think that was like the right way to tell the story. And then, Blood and Guts should have been the ending, then Stadium Stampede should have been the ending, and then you're still continuing and you're breaking off into separate feuds. It seemed very strange, but they've done a great job of focusing on, MJF is this future heel that's going to be the champion one day. Sammy Guevara is your future babyface, and then they got the FTR, Santana and Ortiz feud, which is building up in a great way, and they haven't even had a tag team match yet. So they've done a great job of making me interested in the feud again.
Yeah. I think what they did well was that like I do agree with the blood and guts thing. Like that probably should have been the last blowout, but at the same time I kind of understand why they did it, just because that was the match I was planning for last year.
Yeah.
So I guess it got to a point that they probably just didn't want to wait any longer, because they'll probably lose more interest the more time you wait. But I thought what they've done well, even after Stadium Stampede, was that they kind of focused more on the individuals, on their feuds with individually, and I think that's why it's I think that's why it's been better, because you're not getting all these crazy matches all together, like these crazy tag team matches. You're focusing on the individuals now, which now they have a big blow off match. It's going to be down the road, and I think that's what they've done very well.
Yeah, I think the blow-off match should probably be MJF and Jericho, probably at All Out, which with that, Page versus Omega, this All Out card is already seeming like it's going to be huge, and it's finally feeling like All Out is their WrestleMania once again, which is the show that really sparked this whole AEW movement. But we got
that's true, yeah.
We got to move on to what else we missed this week, Josh. We also had WWE NXT. They drew 636,000 viewers this week, which was actually lower than AEW on Saturday night. I know NXT fans are going to get mad at me for pointing that out, but it was highlighted by the main event, Isaiah Swerve defeating Bronson Reed, thanks to Hit Row to win the NXT North American Championship, and that reportedly will lead to Bronson Reed's call-up to the main roster. So I have two questions for you on this one, Josh. What was your thoughts on Isaiah Swerve finally winning the big one in NXT, and what do you think is the potential of Bronson Reed on the main roster?
I thought, the match itself was great. Isaiah's really been getting to his, he's really been getting to his own ever since turning heel.
Yeah.
He finally had a character that was like, okay, you can get behind. Then they gave him the stable. The finish. That was another great finish. The way that he just finished it off, I thought that was great. But he's really getting to his own. Finally, it took this long. I'm like, finally, they're doing something with him. In regards to Bronson Reed in the main roster, I mean, I don't know, man. At this point, I kind of consider the main roster a death sentence, especially, with Bronson Reed. I mean, there's things that, he's a good performer. For somebody his size, he's really good in the ring, but he's not a strong talker, and we've seen what happens when you're not a strong talker in these main. So it's like, I don't know, man. I have mixed feelings about that, because I'm like, I don't think it's gonna go well. But the timing is weird too, because he didn't even have a long reign. They made a big deal of him winning the North American belt just because his upbringing, coming from Australia, living all the way over here. They built it up so great, and then he's like, even involving what his wife or what she is, like this big moment, for him, this big run, and then all of a sudden gets cut short. So the whole thing was weird. I'm happy for Swerve. I think bigger things are in store for him, especially if they keep this stable. Which I think at first I wasn't like too big on it, but I'm like, hey, if it works for him, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy. I've been a fan of Hit Row since they got together. The group just kind of works for me. And like you said, Isaiah Swerve Scott has been on a roll since turning heel. So it felt like they were going with the hot hand. But it feels very abrupt. Like you also noted with Bronson Reed, it feels very similar to when Keith Lee won the NXT championship and was getting called up. It's like plans obviously changed here because they seem to have been leading to Bronson Reed versus Santos Escobar, and now they just veered left and went with Swerve Scott. So I am not the most optimistic on Bronson Reed on the main roster, but we shall see. He might have something that Vince McMahon wants. Also on the show, you had Io Shirai and Zoe Stark defeating Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai, and Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon in a three-way to become the number one contenders for the NXT Women's Tag Team Championships next week at Great American Bash. He had a show-long angle with Johnny Gargano attacking Karrion Kross when he came to the building. Then the two men got into a confrontation in the ring with security and Samoa Joe separating them. And then later on in the night, Gargano and Theory jumped Kross as he was leaving the building, leading to Karrion choking out Johnny and laying out Theory with a forearm to the back of the head. I thought we were getting Johnny Gargano turning babyface, and now I don't know who I'm supposed to cheer here. This feels like Rhea Ripley and Charlotte on Monday Night Raw. What about you, Josh? That's the perfect response. Perfect response to that.
I don't know what they're doing. Like I have because like last week it was like, oh, I guess babyface Johnny's coming back, and then all of a sudden I'm like, am I supposed to be cheering for Kross or Johnny again? Like what? Like what just happened? Like it's confusing as fuck. I don't know, man. But the thing is that this is what NXT has been lately. Like the last few months, like they have these freaking, they have like these guys going from baby face heel, baby face heel. Then you're like wondering for now. Like it's bizarre.
It's very strange, and it seems like it changes from week to week with this, especially with this one. Also on the show, Cameron Grimes defeated Ario Sterling, aka the former Alex Zane, and challenged LA Knight to $1 million title match next week at the Great American Bash. With if Grimes loses, he will become Knight's butler. We also had the final Great American Bash build promos with Cole and O'Reilly, as well as MSK and Thatcher and Ciampa. And then we had a scary injury with Mercedes Martinez taking a stiff kick from Xia Li in a mixed tag team matchup. My thoughts and best wishes to Mercedes Martinez, because that looked horrible. What did you think about that kick?
Oh yeah, it was brutal. You could see she was knocked out, but apparently she's fine. Like they said, but they said they're still unsure if she has a concussion or not. Which, if she has one, I would not be surprised, because you saw there's no way in hell you could tell me she was not knocked out, because she just dropped and she limped. You could tell when somebody knocks out, like the way their body shuts down. And that's what it looked like.
Yeah, it looked like she was immediately out as soon as she got hit with that kick. Over on the SmackDown side of the ledger, this past week you had Edge returned to interrupt Roman Reigns and lay out Jimmy Uso to set up Edge and Roman at Money in the Bank. We also had the latest family drama between Roman and Jimmy, as Jay no-showed once again, and Jimmy looked to prove himself to the tribal chief by defeating Dolph Ziggler in the main event, but Reigns still blew him off prior to that final segment. You also had Bayley and Seth Rollins defeat Bianca Belair and Cesaro in mixed tag team action over on SmackDown. Another good episode, in my opinion. Second week in a row, fingers crossed this continues.
Following Edge's return on last week's SmackDown, this week's SmackDown had a big return itself as former WWE superstar, much maligned in the last couple of months with a controversial release, then rumors that she had returned to the WWE PC, her husband Tommy End, aka Aleister Black, being released, but finally, Zelina Vega has returned to WWE. It was announced on this week's SmackDown by non-general manager Sonya Deville that Zelina Vega will be a part of the Women's Money in the Bank contract match at the pay-per-view on July 18th. This is huge news. Congratulations has to go out to Zelina Vega on her return to WWE. It was also noted by her husband, Aleister Black, aka Tommy End, on her Twitch stream that she will not be doing any more streams on Twitch now that she is back with WWE. And Tommy also said that he was glad that he had been released from WWE and he has no plans to return there, but we will know in the weeks to come what his future will hold. But once again, huge congratulations and a welcome back to the WWE for Zelina Vega.
You had Riddle once again being the MVP of the show as he filled in for his good friend Randy Orton, a sound mind and body, because he has a bodacious bro like Riddle, apparently, to that note, who did not appear on the show. Orton, Riddle won a battle royal to get into the last chance Money in the Bank qualifying match against AJ Styles and Drew McIntyre, which Drew won, hitting the Claymore on Riddle. And we got a great promo segment with Kofi Kingston and MVP setting up Bobby Lashley versus a returning Xavier Woods next week on Raw. What has been your thoughts on Riddle on Monday Night Raw, really kind of stealing the show and manning the ship, kind of bringing the quality back to Monday Night Raw?
Yeah, man, he's been the MVP. Like, there's no question about that. Like he's really freaking rolling. I'm happy to see, me personally, just because meeting him a few times. Like you could see how genuine he really is. So like on the personal level, I'm happy to see that. But it's funny like how everyone, they're praising him. They're saying like, oh, he has this great character, this great gimmick. I'm like, no. If you ever met Riddle, this is not a gimmick. This is himself. He's being himself, and that's what I love about it. It's not forced. Like the guy's naturally funny, and like when WWE rolls with stuff like that, when guys are like, when they're not trying hard on comedy, to me that's what makes it good. When they have actual people who are naturally funny, instead of having people, you're forcing them to be funny, or you're forcing them to do these dumb things that just is more, it's more awkward than funny. Seeing this from Riddle was freaking fantastic, especially. He had like two of the best segments of the night. Like when he had the opener when he's talking to what do you call them?
Sonya and Pierce, the non-general managers.
The non-general manager / authority kind of figures things. Like when he suggested like, oh, put me out. I'll wrestle for Randy, right? And then he starts pretending to be Randy. Oh my god, that was. And then his segment with Priest, I thought him and Priest were fantastic on that. And then he's like, I'm Randy Orton. And he's like, oh, I was just gonna ask you, want to go to Burger King?
He switched it up. Then he asked for the key. He was like, no, I'm still trying to do Randy. He does it so well.
And then freaking Priest had to confirm like Matt, I know it's you. He knows it was him the whole time. It was great. He's been awesome. I really hope they really roll with this. He does. he doesn't even have to win the championship. He doesn't even have to win the championship. Like, just as long as the guy is hot, that's all you really need.
Yeah, I think him and Randy Orton should eventually win the Raw tag team titles for sure. Like, maybe they wait till like SummerSlam to do him and AJ and Almost versus rated RK Bro. But I'm with it. I'm with it. I said rated RK Bro. I just meant RK Bro. But yeah, I'm so with it. And I agree with you. Riddle's been the MVP of Monday Night Raw. But let's move on to our news rundown. WWE news this week, Josh. WWE announced its top 5 greatest tag teams in history this week. Coming in at number 5, the Dudley Boys. Coming in at number 4, Edge and Christian. Number 3 was the Hart Foundation. Number 2, the Hardy Boys. And number 1, the New Day. Do you agree with the number 1 choice in this top 5, or how would you rank these teams?
I would say, do I agree with the top 5 for the most part? Yes. Do I agree with the number 1 spot? No, I don't. Just because, New Day, don't get me wrong. They've had great matches. They've had great moments. But I'm like, what puts them over the Dudley Boys, or what puts them over Edge and Christian? That's my thought to that. I'm like, or even the Hardy Boys, like what puts them over the Hardy Boys? Like, they've had great matches with the Usos, but it's like it's weird. Like when I saw the list, I was like, what? New Day number 1, but then also, if you're putting them number 1, like, I guess they're going by the Freebird rule, right? Because. Yeah. Because they were all tag team champions, but it's like, who was better within the team? Like, was Woods better? Was Woods and Kofi better without Big E, or was Big E better with any of the two? That's why I kind of don't agree with it. I would say maybe top 5, maybe just because of the amount of titles they've won, and also they've been the pinnacle of the tag division for a long time, and they've been together this long. So yeah, it's just, I just don't agree with number 1. I just don't agree with that.
It was a strange pick. Me and Alex McCarthy on Wrestling Daily, we both agreed. We felt like the Hardy Boys was probably the number 1 choice because of how over they were at their height, and because they had different eras of their team, like their initial run, then they reunited in 2006, then they reunited the greatest comeback ever at 2017 at WrestleMania 33. So I think the Hardys should have got number 1, but I'm not entirely mad at the New Day being number 1, and I kind of understand it. Usually with these lists, WWE goes with somebody current and somebody that's going to be with the company for a while, so the New Day kind of fit the bill, and especially because they've been giving Vince a lot of coin over the last couple of years with their merchandise sales, and they're the only team really out of this top. Yeah, I get it. Like, they're the only team out of this top 5 outside of the Hardys that were really like big merch movers like that, as far as like making money for the company. So I understand it and I get it. But speaking of Vince, Josh, Vince McMahon is set to be at the Performance Center to take a look at the talent there, according to a new report. Fightful Select reports that McMahon is scheduled to be at the PC this week. Apparently Thursday of this week, Bruce Pritchard and John Laurinaitis have already made trips to the PC to scout talent in recent weeks, observing the in-house live events that are now not open to the public. The report notes that this, along with the recent appearances of Karrion Kross, Scarlett Bordeaux, Shotzi Blackheart, and Bronson Reed at Raw and SmackDown for dark matches, are part of a major scouting effort to replenish the Raw and SmackDown rosters, which have been depleted by the releases and subject to repeat bookings as of late. What do you think of this latest push to scout talent in NXT? And do you think it makes sense, since NXT should kind of be the thing they watch to scout this talent? What do you think?
That's what I'm saying. that's what I'm saying. Like when I heard the news about that, I was like, "What?" Like, and I forgot what I posted, like the math, like the like confusing math thing. Like, I was like, what? Like, isn't this something that you're already supposed to be doing within your company? Like, what? Like, why? Why is the boss? And they say like, oh, that he's scouting talent. I'm like, but they're his employees, so then they scout them before they were hired. Like, what? Yo, it's fucking bizarre. Yo, like what? Like, in regards to that, I mean, I get, but on the flip side, I also get maybe why they kind of worded it that way, just because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of times where Vince is not there at all, which I could get. Him being a boss and him focusing on the weekly shows. I totally get that. That's understandable. It's just the way that they kind of like went about it. It's just like what, like, but even with being a boss or even being with top executives, being top producers, isn't it something that you're already supposed to be seeing? Like, even if you're, like if these guys aren't NXT, shouldn't you be watching NXT to see, like, to get an idea of what to do, not to, oh, let's bring them on and have a dark match. Like, it's just because honestly, like when they had Karrion Kross, like, I'm like, if that's the entrance they're gonna go with him, I'm like, man, it was pretty depressing. I was like, he looked pretty naked with Scarlett. It's just, I don't know. I'm like, if this is what the future holds, I mean, it's gonna be rough.
Rough times are ahead, and I totally agree with you. Like, it proved that Adam Cole promo right, that without like the lights and the entrance and the girl, Karrion Kross does not look as good in comparison. Fightful Select has an update on superstars getting in training sessions at the Performance Center. As we previously mentioned on Tru Heel Heat, WWE mandated that superstars take part in workouts at the Performance Center in order to prep for WWE's return to the Raw, which is set to begin on Friday, July 16th. According to Fightful's update, many performers who have recently been off TV made the trip to the Performance Center for training this week, including former SmackDown Women's Champion Sasha Banks. Additionally, certain wrestlers who had recently asked for time off weren't exempt from attending the training sessions this week at the Performance Center. Also, another report: in a recent Twitch stream following his release, Tyler Breeze noted that he's had a lot of promotions already reaching out to him following his release, though he is in no hurry to jump back into things, considering he has a 90-day non-compete clause. Where would you like to see Tyler Breeze land next, Josh?
I think Impact would be a good spot.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I think a few of the talents that were released, I think Tyler Breeze, Fandango, I think Impact will be a good spot. Especially like if you want to build on their tag team, if they want to continue to work together, that would be a perfect spot. But then also, I think they'll benefit within the comedy segments within Impact, because Impact does do that a lot. So I think I think he would benefit from that completely.
I agree with you for sure. And speaking of Breezango, according to Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio, Breezango's primary purpose on NXT was to serve as experienced veterans to work with the younger guys, along with being bigger names who had worked on the main roster to help NXT compete with AEW Dynamite in the TV ratings during the Wednesday Night War. However, Meltzer noted that was no longer a factor since NXT ultimately moved to Tuesday nights away from Dynamite earlier this year. WWE reportedly had the mind state of sending guys to NXT who had been on real TV, quote unquote, and NXT would be able to beat AEW Dynamite in the quarter-hour segments. Speaking of other release talent, Fightful Select has details on some creative plans for Arturo Reyes and Marina Shafir, who were a part of those releases. The Diamond Mine has been planned for months, and the group that debuted last Tuesday on NXT featuring Roderick Strong, Tyler Russ, and Hideki Suzuki, with Malcolm Bivens as the manager. According to the report, Ruos and Shafir were actually a part of the group until mid-June, as far as the plans, but was informed a few days before they debuted that plans changed. Shafir was set to be a female enforcer for the group, and many on the roster believe it was still going to happen at a later date. What do you think that the Diamond Mine stable would be better with Marina Shafir as the female enforcer and Arturo Roas in it, Josh?
Yeah, because it would have made them stand out. It would have given them a different feel from all these heel stables they already have. Which, I mean, it's been their problem with the stables and with NXT is like there's not so much of having so many stables just because AEW has a lot of stables.
Yeah.
But when all your stables are heels, it's like it's the same. It's it's the same cycle of shit. But yeah, it would have made them stand out. But then also it would have made sense with Roderick Strong. I mean, like when he left with his wife, and then that would have been perfect to bring them back in. To be full circle of hey, of this guy recruiting them and then being part of the group. I think that kind of hurts the group because honestly, I really right now I really don't have any interest in Diamond Mine. I'm like, okay, cool, another stable completely.
Yeah, they just seem like another stable, but they're kind of going to be in the mid card in the cruiserweight division. So I agree. Like Marina Shafir would have made them stand out more. Another report is that there's some additional details on release talent from WWE requesting to be let go or let out of their non-compete clauses. Fightful Select reported that several people released in 2021 had asked WWE to forego or in some cases their technical non-compete clause that goes with being a talent for the company. Fightful Select reports they have confirmed that at least one talent did get an early release from their non-complete obligations, and WWE was willing to forego the entirety of the non-compete, but that ultimately didn't happen. According to Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio, there's a movement within the company right now to bring in younger, bigger guys, which seems to be why Bronson Reed is going to get called up. Specifically, WWE officials are looking for talent who are of the age of 26 and under and over 220 pounds. Additionally, Meltzer noted that most of the guys WWE released yesterday were older and talents that the company didn't have plans on using. So the prototype of the people WWE was looking for to release were wrestlers in their late 30s who are never going to be on the main roster. Meltzer noted that Vince McMahon has a habit of looking for bigger guys when business isn't doing as well. And then also Fightful Select has reported parts of the report last week that the fan backlash against Kenise Mobley had nothing to do with the company's decision to fire her. WWE actively tries to discourage their writing staff from talking about their jobs. Several wrestlers and members of the staff felt disrespected by how she spoke about the wrestling business after she was hired and the fact that she was on the team and didn't know who the characters were. Are you of the thought process that the fans are to blame for Kenise Mobley being fired, or do you think that it was a subject of when keeping it real goes wrong?
Both. I think it was both. Just because like when I watched the interview with her about everything, what was it for me was that it wasn't her lack of knowledge of wrestling that bothered me. It was her oblivious, nonchalant attitude towards her speaking about her job. I think that's what because regardless if you bash a company, hey, we're fans, right? We don't work for WWE. So like if we criticize the product, that's different. We're not employees, but when you go on a public platform and then you pretty much, you pretty much spoke about like their business, their hiring practice. you're blatantly oblivious to the situation. To me that was pretty cut and dry for me. Like you just because when I read it, I was like, oh man, it was bad. But then actually seeing how she was, because to her it felt like it was a giant joke. Like she was like, why? She was like, oh, that she doesn't watch. She's never watched wrestling. She doesn't know anything about it. But then when you get asked a question about like, oh, who's your big star, you don't even know the name of your freaking champion of the show that you're writing for, because she says she was on the Monday Night Raw team. Not only that you don't know your own champion, but then you pretty much make a joke of the stable that he was in, which the reason why it pissed off a lot of people is because a lot of people did like the Hurt Business. And the way when she brought them up, it felt like she buried them. It was kind of like she made them sound like a joke. Like, oh yeah, they're called the Hurt Business. Like, they wear suits. Yeah, they're cool guys. I was like, what? Like that wasn't the purpose of the Hurt Business. Like, because even the casuals, like the guy that she was with, like the guy that was being interviewed, he laughed at everything. Like he's like, Hurt. Yeah. And it's like, what? Like, he thought it was one big joke, and I'm like, but if you understand the concept of why it was called the Hurt Business, you actually watch it, you understand why it was called the Hurt Business, because there were big dudes who were dressed in suits, being professionals, beating the shit out of people. That's why they were called the Hurt Business. But to somebody who doesn't know anything, she made it to be a giant joke, and I could see why people were pissed about it.
Yeah, it makes sense to me why it was a situation, but I do think that some fans went a little bit extreme with their criticism of Kenise Mobley and harassment, pretty much.
Yeah, which I mean, like, I get, like, they went far. It kind of to the point, though, is like, none of it is surprising. You know how fucking wrestling fans are, and this is like to any sport. They do something happens retarded, something happens that people don't like, they're gonna get a bunch of messages, bunch of emails, and I think that's one of the things that she should have thought about. Like, she should have understood where she was working at, and then if she did something that was against, what people would say or against their views, the kind of backlash she would have gotten, because not only she offended fans, she offended employees. Like, she offended people that she was working with, and in a way, I'm like, I could say like, hey, I feel bad for her getting the backlash, but at the same time, I mean, like, hopefully it's a learning lesson. Like, you get into a situation that you know absolutely nothing about. You need to do your research on it before anything.
Absolutely true. In a recent interview on the Out of Character podcast with Ryan Satin, Samoa Joe revealed that he is working toward an in-ring return in NXT, and he gave some details on the talks that he had with Triple H following his release. He said that a few hours after his release, he got a call from Hunter, and pretty much all of this changed. I had sent some company farewell texts to some people I genuinely enjoyed working with, just something general like, hey, thanks, and I'm sure we'll talk down the road at some point. And I got a text back, hey, give me a minute, and I'm getting out of a meeting. Then we had a brief conversation, which was essentially, give us a little bit of time, I'll work out a package and we'll be talking soon. And I said, all right, that's totally fine, I have no problem with that. And it led to my return back to NXT. And then he said on his working towards returning to the ring, he said, absolutely, we'll just say yes and we'll leave it at that. And when Samoa Joe says we'll leave it at that, you leave it at that. You don't ask any further question. But finally, confirmation that Samoa Joe is going to have an in-ring return, which makes all wrestling fans very happy. According to PW Insider's sources, Damian Priest was recently away from TV in order to deal with some personal matters. The earlier Fightful Select report noted that WWE had creative plans for Priest as early as last week, and that seems to play out on this week's Monday Night Raw. And then speaking of 205 Live, we talked about earlier, they taped on Tuesday night before NXT, and it featured two new debuts. They included Harlem Bravado from Evolve and now working under the name Andre Chase, as well as one of your friends, Josh, Joe Gacy. Both wrestlers have competed for Evolve in the past. On the show, Gacy has a match with Desmond Troy, formerly Denzel DeGeneres, and Chase battles Gura Raju, which is a part of those two guys that were with Jinder Mahal, I believe. According to Fightful Select, the Diamond stable is a part of NXT, increasing their focus on the cruiserweight division, which Kushida now serves as champion. So it seems like the Diamond Mine are going to get a big focus on the NXT brand, like we talked about earlier with the plans that they had.
Following reports that Vince McMahon was at the Performance Center to scout talent this week, PW Insider reports that one of the talents describes his visit as a breath of fresh air. And also, Sean Rossap of Fightful Select reports that Toni Storm worked a dark match this week against Shotzi Blackheart, in the latest NXT talent to get a dark match before SmackDown or Raw tapings. It seems like they are scouting some younger talent to replenish the roster following the releases and in advance of the WWE draft. We want to send a big congratulations this week as Seth Rollins and the man Becky Lynch finally tied the knot and got married. It was announced first on Seth Rollins' Instagram story that he said it was finally a good day to get married, and it was then confirmed by WWE that this beautiful couple got married. So congratulations to them. We hope they have a beautiful marriage together.
Moving on to AEW news, it appears that Rebel suffered an injury, a dislocated kneecap during that tag match on Dynamite. No word on further on her condition, but we're hoping that, she has a speedy recovery. It's a shame. 2 big injuries on NXT and AEW this week, Josh.
Yeah, when I saw the Rebel one, I knew something was wrong because she didn't move at all. And then you saw when Nyla grabbed her, she said something to Nyla, and that's why Nyla, just let her go. You saw that, and then she just stood. I knew something was wrong. Man, I wish I wish her speedy recovery on everything because me and her are cool. So
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. Rebel's a great personality, a great second for Britt Baker, so we're hoping she gets a speedy recovery. AEW announced 3 shows to take place over All Out Week in Chicago in September. They're going to have a Wednesday Dynamite show as well as a Rampage show on September 3rd, and then All Out on September 5th, so they're going hard for All Out Week there. It was revealed this week that AEW star Darby Allin will star in the upcoming Jackass 4 movie coming out this year. What an appropriate role for Darby Allin. And then also Jungle Boy trended on Twitter this week after he shared a photo of himself kissing Anna Jay, seemingly confirming a relationship between the two. That went over well with wrestling fans, didn't it, Josh?
Oh yeah, it really did. Especially with the fans that actually thought they had a chance for Anna Jay for some crazy reason.
Was this close? I was this close. Of course, Jim Cornette even said that Jungle Boy's going to be less over now that they know he's not a bachelor. That seemed to work out well on Wednesday Night Dynamite. He was over like Rover as usual. But hey, Jim Cornette knows all. But speaking of Anna Jay and the Dark Order, another Dark Order member, Colt Cabana, revealed there were plans for him to feud with Brody Lee in AEW. Cabana spoke with Fightful Select and said that there were plans for him to eventually get back to a feud with Brody Lee down the line. Cabana was recruited to the Dark Order by Lee after a losing streak, and he remains a member of the group now. Cabana told the site that he made the pitch for a feud after Lee faced Jon Moxley for the AEW World title and had put together a manuscript to outline the plans, basically him getting recruited, being like a fringe member, and then eventually feuding with Brody. But those plans never came to fruition due to Lee's passing in December. In an interview in an upcoming interview with 2 Dynamite Dudes with Attitude podcast, Teddy Kingston addressed his comments on WWE. He said on his promo on Dynamite, "Let's get this question out of the way and let's all calm down. down. You think I'm going to bury the locker room that I work for? Question mark. No. Plus, I love our locker room. I love AEW. What do you want from me? They're paying me and they're putting me on a national television after it'll be 20 years in October. Of course, I'm going to rah AEW. Relax. I expect people from the other joint, if they're allowed to mention our names, they'll probably do the same thing, because you know what I mean. They want their home team to win. It's just like NFL or Major League Baseball, man. You want to go with your home team. AEW is my team. That's my squad. Just perfect. I think that puts in a nutshell what a lot of our thoughts are on that whole situation and people overreacting in general. And then AEW has a stacked lineup for Road Rager next week. Josh, you got AEW Tag Team Championship match, the Young Bucks versus Penta and Eddie Kingston. You got mixed tag team match, the first mixed tag team match in Dynamite history, Orange Cassidy and Chris Statlander versus the Bunny and the Blade. You got South Beach strap match with Cody Rhodes versus QT Marshall. You got Andrade El Idio's debut versus Matt Sydal. Maxwell Jacob Freeman and Chris Jericho go face-to-face. The Inner Circle in a six-man tag team matchup with Santana Ortiz and Jake Hager versus the Pinnacle, Wardlow, and FTR. What match or segment are you looking forward to the most on AEW next week?
Probably the segment, probably the MJF and Jericho face-off. The match itself, I want to see this guy, Andrade. I want to see, it's been a long ass time since I've seen him wrestle, so I wanted to see, I definitely look forward to seeing that one.
I agree with you. And him and Matt Sydal should have a very good matchup on Dynamite next week. Tickets for the first New Japan Pro Wrestling event in the U.S. Since before the COVID-19 pandemic go on sale late this week, actually. The show called Resurgence happens at the Torch in Los Angeles Coliseum on August 14th. And New Japan announced Switchblade Jay White will defend the Never Openweight Championship against David Finlay on the show. Impact Wrestling has announced that they will allow fans to attend their upcoming TV tapings following the Slammiversary pay-per-view. The tapings happen on July 18th and 19th following Slammiversary on July 17th, and tickets go on sale this week as well. In ROH news, ROH has announced that Bandito will challenge Roosh for the ROH World title at Best in the World next month, their first pay-per-view with fans in attendance in well over a year, and this follows Bandito's win in the 2021 Survival of the Fittest, which helped them earn this opportunity. ROH also announced a Pure Championship matchup with their Best in the World pay-per-view next month. It was announced on ROH Week to Week this week that Jonathan Gresham will defend his championship against Mike Bennett, who won a Pure Rules Gauntlet match to earn the title match on the show. The NWA have announced that they have a new champion series that will kick off in 2 weeks. Joe Galli announced on NWA Power this week that the points-based series will begin on July 13th with Nick Aldis and Camille involved, as well as other legends. Revolve Pro Wrestling announced that they have vacated the Revolution Pro Wrestling, announced that they have vacated the Rev Pro Undisputed British Women's Championship to set up a match to crown a new champion. Jamie Hayter, who was the previous champion, was set to defend against Sky Smithson, but she had to relinquish the title before Rev Pro resumed their event because she is taking a tryout with NXT UK. So there will be a match between former champions Zoe Lucas and Giselle Shaw at Rev Pro Live at the Cockpit 51 to crown a new champion. And it should also be noted that B. Priestley apparently had a teaser vignette on the latest NXT UK with her new name being Blair Davenport. So NXT UK replenishing the woman's talent for sure. And that brings us a close on our news this week on Tru Heel Heat 132. So let's end things off, Josh, with another edition of Mount Rushmore. And this time, we're going to do the Mount Rushmore, the 4 top names that you can think of when we say the worst, the most disappointing, or failed NXT call-ups. Since you are the guest on this edition of Tru Heel Heat, I will give you the floor. What is your Mount Rushmore of failed NXT call-ups, sir?
My Mount Rushmore fell call-ups will be Bo Dallas,
Good one.
Bo Dallas, Neville,
Damn shame. Damn shame.
uh, Nakamura.
That is one that I think we are gonna share. I think he is definitely a part of my Mount Rushmore as well.
And last one, I'm like, I want to say Finn. Nah, I'm going to go with Finn.
Wow, Finn, really? I would say Finn had a level of success. He won the Intercontinental Championship. He won the Universal Championship. Why did you put Finn as your final name on the Mount Rushmore?
I would say Finn just because with Finn up to the main roster, right? He had a lot of momentum when he won. You know, he won the opportunity to get for the Universal title. As of getting the title, then loses it. I mean, he didn't lose it technically. He had to relinquish the title because he got injured. Not his fault at all. But then after that, it was like they really didn't know what they were doing with him. Like they had no clue what to do with him. He didn't get another title shot until like years later. It felt like.
Yeah.
And then after, then he had he had some time off. Then after he goes back to NXT, I felt like that was kind of a demotion, even though he's actually had a nice run coming back to NXT. But it's like, how you go from NXT to the main roster, they had all these plans for you, and then all of a sudden you go back to NXT. That's the reason why I put him on. Like, even though for me it's questionable, I could have said Bobby Roode maybe, just because of all the momentum Bobby Roode had. He was NXT champion himself, and then even when he got called up, there was really no real momentum. Like, he won the tag titles with Dolph, but I'm like, nobody really talks about that. No one talks about that. Yeah. I could have easily said, but I think that's the reason why I put Finn, just because of there's a lot of stock with Finn, and it's just, once he got to their main roster, it was like, they'll try to build him up to go somewhere, and then all of a sudden it was always cut down for some reason.
He's an example of start and stop pushes for sure. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. I can agree with that much. I would say he got a level of success that makes me not put him on my Mount Rushmore. The one I would definitely agree with you that's on my Mount Rushmore is Shinsuke Nakamura. Like, yes, he's had a level of success himself. U.S. champion, Intercontinental champion, recently the King of the Ring. I guess you can say he's the King of the Ring now. But it just seems like they never were able to get him to a level that he was at. It seemed like they were on that path to him leading there going into WrestleMania 34, and then they turned him heel, and he just hasn't been the same ever since, or really been close to that level that he was at previously. A top one for sure. I made this point on Wrestling Daily. It's up on the Wrestling Daily social media Twitter page as well. Tyler Breeze. Tyler Breeze should have been a ready-made money gimmick for the main roster. This is like Rick the Model Martel, HBK meets each other. The Zoolander gimmick, the entrance with the selfie cam. He sang his own entrance. He should have at the very least been like a Dolph Ziggler 2.0 for WWE. And they completely blew it within 2 weeks of him being on the main roster. He was the second for Summer Rae. He lost to Dolph Ziggler like in his second week on the show, and then he was just like lost in the shuffle, not on TV at some point. They had to put him in the tag team with Breezango. Breezango got success. They were like the highlight of SmackDown in 2017, and then they blew it. They never capitalized on that momentum. So every single time it seemed like he had momentum, whether it was coming on the main roster or with Breezango, they failed Breeze. So I would say Breeze is like, if you said who is like the most failed or most disappointing call up, he would be in my running for sure. Another one that's very troublesome, and it's probably the unsung hero of the women's revolution. Before the Four Horsewomen, before Asuka, it was Paige, and then there was Emma. Emma is a part of my Mount Rushmore because Emma should Emma should have been it should have been money. Like Emma and Paige were like the building blocks for the NXT women's division. Like the NXT women's division would have never been shit without Paige and Emma having great matches in 2013, 2014. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it still hurts my head that they brought her to the main roster and she's a fucking mascot for Santino Marella. Like what
Oh,
the hell?
yeah. The reason why I'm laughing is because, like, when I was talking to her about it, she did say Emma. She did say Emma. That's why I'm laughing.
100%. When you think about like the women, like the Four Horsewomen, they all had success on the main roster. Even like Asuka, someone that they said they never got her to the point that she was at in NXT. She's won every single title on the main roster, so she's been successful. When you think about women who made that transition, I would say Emma's at the top of the list for sure. So I have to put her in my Mount Rushmore here. And then the final name, Sammy freaking Zayn. Sami
Ooh.
Zayn is one of the greatest baby faces, not in NXT history, in WWE history, period. He had one of the best babyface arcs to the championship that I ever seen in NXT. He's one of the pioneers, the Mount Rushmore of the entire NXT. If we did another segment of the Mount Rushmore of NXT, Sami Zayn either is going to make it or he's going to be in the running for sure. But when you think about call-ups to the main roster, they have never let him sniff the main event scene. The highest he's ever got is the Intercontinental Championship. Although he has a great character right now, when you think about it, since 2017, the man has 6 singles victories in 4 freaking years. That is enough to make my Mount Rushmore of failed NXT call-ups when you consider the level of success he had in NXT.
That's freaking insane that how he's had 4, right? 4 wins and they made him a champion. Like, how is that possible? How is that possible? Like, what the fuck? Yo.
It's amazing to me, but it is a true fact. 6 singles victories in 4 years, and this man has been a 2-time pretty much Intercontinental Champion. It's baffling. It's baffling. But yes, that is my Mount Rushmore. That is Josh Mount Rushmore. Let us know in the comments section below which one you thought was better. Give us your Mount Rushmore of failed NXT call-ups in the comments below. Your most disappointing, worst, however you want to phrase it, your Mount Rushmore of most disappointing NXT call-ups. Let us know in the comments section or in the live chat right now if you're watching the premiere. But that brings us to a close on Tru Heel Heat 132. I want to thank Josh for filling in for Miss Chrissy Love and Top Guy JJ. You were a great guest host here. Great analysis. Great talking to you about the wrestling world. Please tell the people where they can find you on social media. Any conventions or anything you got coming up or any prints you got to sell. Let them know right now, sir.
Yeah. So you can find me on social media on Twitter and Instagram on jmpunk321. As far as I'm actually doing my first comic convention of 2021 at Brooklyn Comic Con that's coming up in August.
Nice.
That one's gonna be fun. That's gonna be a 2-day event. I think it's gonna be outside too, so hopefully it don't rain that weekend.
Fingers crossed. Yes. Doing great things, man. You're an amazing artist. You're always a great guest whenever we have you on Tru Heel Heat. So I have to thank you once again for joining us on Tru Heel Heat 132, good brother.
Right, thank you. Thank you for having me.
And of course, if you're watching this, check out a lot of our other lineup that we have right now on the Tru Heel Heat YouTube channel. There was a live Romeo report over the last weekend where we talked about the NXT, the WWE releases. You also have Rated Raw Superstars, NX3, AE recap with Jimmy Macaram and Marcus Cash, Blunt Impact, Dark Power, Fusion of Honor, a whole bunch of great content on the YouTube channel right now. My exclusive interview with Weston Blake is up on the YouTube channel right now. Coming up on next week, we got my exclusive interview that you heard the sneak preview here for with Alberto El Patron. It gets real, it gets very honest, and it gets very uncensored, so check that out for sure. And you can see me over on the Wrestling Daily YouTube channel with Alex McCarthy. We talked about the heat between Eddie Kingston and Bully Ray. You can see me on the Power 4 TV YouTube channel, on Power 4 SP3 with John Scott, as well as the Sportskeeda Wrestling YouTube channel on Smack Talk with Rick Ucchino and Dutch Mantel. You can also see an exclusive debate that we had on Smack Talk last week as me and Rick Ucchino debated about the writer Kenice Mobley. So check that out for sure. Follow me on Twitter at Tru Heel SP3. Follow the gang, Tru Heel Heat, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So, for Josh Marrero, the Tru Draw himself, it is me, your Tru Heel Phenom SP3. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to the Tru Heel Heat YouTube channel for Tru Heel Heat 132 until Tru Heel Heat 133 next week. We are signing off until next time.